This week's episode, what did Xbox reveal with its showcase? Did Jurassic World find a box office dominion? And Marvel gets ready to unleash the Thunderbolts. All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanican Media, also the great folks at the Lakers Fast Break, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, and all the great things that we do at popculturecosmos.com and, of course, Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every day, like the Xbox Showcase we just dropped, all the knowledge there, plus also as well, we're the number one tabletop RPG streamer right there on Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. And if you could support all of that, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is our own pop culture showcase for Pop Culture Cosmos. You can go ahead and catch what he's doing today at Humanican Media at humanicanmedia.com and Humanican Media wherever you get your social media, plus popculturecosmos.com. His tremendous podcasts that are out there, the Super BS Gamescast, and of course Topicocalypse, plus his amazing book, which you can still get today at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, entitled Congratulations, You Suck. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
What is up? It's been a while. It
I
has been a
know.
while.
I'm so amazed. I remembered everything and I did it fluidly. And I did that coming off of vacation.
Nice. You did. You
Amazing.
did. Well done. Well done. It's been a while and not in the context of the Stain song.
Yes, absolutely. I know with you and your references to music, and since you returned to Facebook, and so you returned to social media, and Nickelback and all that. That joke went on in your social media that I thought was very funny, and
Thank you.
of course the Angels of Anaheim, which you and I both remember quite fondly from our days in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have tried to induce that in order to try and get rid of their losing streak, which they finally got rid of, which was so funny that it takes Nickelback in order to go ahead and try to relieve the pain. But great to see you, my friend. I know that you and I have a lot to talk about today because the Xbox just finished its showcase. The Xbox Showcase just completed. So we're going to be talking about the good about that, plus comparing it to Jeff Keighley's fantastical summer video game showcase. We're gonna talk about that compared to that, see what happened there, see what happened there. Plus also mention a little bit PlayStation State of Play that happened a little over a week ago. So we're gonna talk about all these different gaming things and seeing what we liked from them. Plus also as well, we're going to talk about the comparisons to if they were all together on an E3 platform. Once again, I'm going to go on my soapbox on E3, and that's coming up here in a bit. But also is where we're going to talk about Jurassic World Dominion and its initial returns. Where does it stand in the pantheon of Jurassic movies? And is there a future again? I know we touched on it on Friday's show with Melinda and I, but I want to hear Josh's thoughts as a bigger fan of the Jurassic series than me. I want to hear his thoughts on where the series can go from there. Plus, Marvel's Thunderbolts. Yes, that is looking more and more like it's a go for the Thunderbolts as a director has been announced, a guy behind the project, a guy to come up with this creation. He pitched Marvel, and Marvel says Thunderbolts could now be a go. So we'll talk about the Thunderbolts. And my good friend, Mr. Rafael Barlow from the Locked On NBA podcast called of course, well, I'm going to just go ahead and say right now, he's a good friend of mine. He's been scouting NBA players all around the world, and he's been doing a great job with his shows, the NBA Big Board, and also, of course, everything that he does with the NBA Draft Junkies.com, at the NBA's Big Board podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, and his Substack, NBABigBoard.com. He's going to stop by to talk about Netflix's Hustle. Was this Hustle for Netflix a good one? He's going to talk about that on the show as well. But first, my friend, it is the Xbox Showcase that just appeared with a lot of great announcements, and it was all pre-recorded and all pre-taped and all homogenized and sanitized, just like the summer showcase from Jeff Keighley, the Summer Game Fest to be exact. That was all homogenized and just all sanitized, and the state of play was all sanitized and homogenized. It gave us all these great announcements, but really, because they're all disjointed, because it came at different points during the past almost 2 weeks now. Gorilla's Game Fest, there were other independent game fests as far as from other developers. They're all doing their own thing. It just seemed to me like it was all disjointed, and just seemed to me, just like I said before, without an E3 to bundle it all up, it just seemed to be missing a little bit of that something, a little bit that something to go ahead and connect with a general audience at large.
Yeah, I agree with you on that context. I think the E3 weekend was cool because you had all three, all the bigs giving their conferences in a span of 3 or 4 days usually.
Mm-hmm.
With this one, you had PlayStation State of Play happening. I think it was last weekend, right, or last week sometime.
Yeah, it was a little over a week ago. It's about closing in on 2 weeks.
And then you had the summer gaming stuff happening sporadically throughout the week.
Yeah, the big one of all
today.
Yeah, our good friend Jeff Keighley. Okay, he's not our friend, but he's someone that we talk about on the show. The Summer Game Fest. That was.
Speaking of Keighley, I'm surprises the heck out of me that Kojima is working on something exclusively with Xbox. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that was one of the big takeaways that I know a lot of people were talking about coming away from the Xbox Showcase. I know with the Summer Game Fest, it really didn't have a whole lot of panache or pizzazz with a lot of great announcements. I know that it was kind of weird to see a PlayStation game being featured on the Summer Game Fest when they had their own state of play in the Last of Us 2 remake, the Last of Us remake coming to PlayStation 5. So the Last of Us 2 remake coming to PlayStation 5. So I don't know. It just seemed like there was a little bit that you could take away from each and every major showcase that was out there. State of play, obviously, with the fact that God of War is going to come to November. The God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, they didn't announce that though. That came out in a tweet.
Later on.
Later, yeah.
Yeah. So, but obviously the what announced, what was there and announced, is pretty good coming up. But the thing with the state of play with Street Fighter 6 and Final Fantasy, that everything that is showcased there, is it going to be exclusive? Most of the stuff that they announced is not going to be exclusive. It's going to have some window of exclusivity, but for the most part, a lot of stuff is not going to be that they showcased eventually just on a PlayStation platform. Same thing with Xbox. A lot of the stuff that they showcased today will have some type of exclusivity, but not for long. It's going to be on it's going to be on all these other different platforms at some point. I know initially on the on the Xbox Games Pass, you're going to be able to get it on PC and Xbox. So I ask you, trying to whittle everything down to just the exclusives, just the console exclusives for each. I mean, it's really hard to figure out which ones are going to be exclusive to which. I still think in the long run, I still think right now PlayStation has the better first party games list, but I think Xbox is closing the gap.
Yeah, I mean, Sony doesn't really focus too much on like highlighting indie developers, whereas Microsoft really does that. If you ask me, like looking at everything that was announced, I think that I really like the Sony State of Play, but I do think Microsoft won the show just because they had a bigger amount of things announced and coming out.
Yeah, within the
Um,
next 12 months. Let's
Within
put
the
it in.
next 12
Yeah.
months, yeah, and Sony's, like, notorious for discussing things that will come out years later. Uh, but, I mean, we're looking I mean, going down this list here, like, I don't know if Resident Evil or Street Fighter will be exclusive. I know Final Fantasy 16 is exclusive, but it's coming out 2023, so that's, it's gonna be sometime soon, and they have the, PSVR exclusives. Horizon Call of the Mountain. Looking at this, where I don't know too much about the PSVR 2, but do you think that that is how do you think that tech's going to work? Because I know when Oblivion came out, it was a mess, right? Like the
Well,
sensors weren't picking up the movements
and
and
that's another thing I want to comment with State of Play. The State of Play, yeah, it had probably the bigger names of the two between that and the Xbox Showcase, but a lot
Mhm.
of it was split between PlayStation VR 2, which is not even out yet, which is coming
Yeah,
soon, and what with the PlayStation doing. So you take away all the PlayStation VR 2s, which should have initially had its own showcase. I really think that they should have had its own showcase separate
right.
to what we're seeing PlayStation. There wasn't a whole lot left over for
You
PlayStation.
Yeah, you look at the only exclusive, if you take those away, the only exclusive was, Final Fantasy 16 because Callisto Protocol is also hitting Xbox, Street Fighter comes out on Xbox, Resident Evil 4 will hit Xbox. Ollie Ollie is already out on Nintendo. Hold on, where was I looking at that? Nope, not Ollie Ollie. Sorry. Tunic is already out on
Yeah,
Nintendo. I mean,
no, it's already been no Xbox.
Xbox, and I think Eternites might be exclusive to Sony, but other than that, yeah, you're right. There's not really. I mean, one that we know for sure, and that's going to
They
be Final
split
Fantasy
between
16.
PlayStation VR 2. So and I understand that they're trying to go after the market which they were once dominating, but I know
Mhm.
with Facebook and its Quest, trying to go ahead and
Yeah.
now capture the marketplace with its gaming platform, and they've been all the talk over the recent past months, and they've had a heavy advertising campaign with its MetaQuest and all that. That's now available that you can get right now, and I know PSVR 2 is something that's going to be coming along the way to compete again with that to try and regain the space in the virtual reality, but to me, virtual reality is still a small part of the gaming
Yeah.
equation. And to devote so much time to it on the state of play, plus the fact you don't have as many exclusive games as you I think
It's
Sony
not.
should.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
VR is not like economically accessible for a lot of people quite yet. Quite
Well,
yet.
$299 for a start for the MetaQuest.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, the MetaQuest 2. That's an entry
Right.
point. That's a decent entry point right there for you. So
And still,
I
I
think
mean, you look at kids wanting to save up for consoles though, and you're gonna see I would
yeah.
much rather buy a PlayStation or an Xbox as opposed to
Agreed. As
console instead.
Yeah, my thoughts on virtual reality over the years. I've not been the biggest fan of it. I just think that we're not at the point where we really need to be when it comes to virtual reality, especially with
Right.
everything still connected to you in order to go ahead and experience it. But getting back to the actual conferences itself, again, Sony's got again the in the long run. In the long run, I think they've got the better amount of first party games. I think they still have the better
The
amount of titles, but it's the long run. And right now,
right.
in the short term, in the next 12-18 months, it looks like it's a more even matchup between Xbox and also PlayStation.
Yeah, and, Sony does make great first party narrative driven titles. I will give them that. Um, even I know Final Fantasy is a third party. So this whole conference didn't focus on first party titles at all. This is all third party. I'm imagining we're going to get a first party conference, September, October maybe, and that's going to talk about like God of War and whatever else they have
Yeah.
planned for the next 12 months. But Xbox really like came at a lot of the titles that they were talking about were things that nobody really had any
Well,
idea
they
existed.
don't have a handheld. They don't have a virtual reality to go
Mm-mm.
ahead and worry about having to devote to. All they have to do is devote to Xbox Games Pass, devoted to Xbox Series and the
Right,
PC.
right.
And they focused in on that, and that to me I think is the key. I give them the slight edge overall as far as the presentations are concerned, but I probably have to say at this point I know with the titles that they threw at us over the next 12 months, there's not a whole lot of big titles coming our way from both of these
Yeah.
major
Well,
major
there's
console makers, and
yeah,
even in Nintendo too. I mean, there's not a whole lot of big name games that are coming our way
yeah, and
anytime soon.
I'm curious when Nintendo's gonna be announcing something. But yeah, looking, if you even looking at the Xbox Bethesda, the big games that they announced, like they have what Redfall and hold
Of
on, what
course,
are some other ones called?
Starfield,
Redfall, Starfield, Forza, and
Forza
that's
Motorsports is a remake of the original. Just to let everybody know, again, just to touch on that. So Forza
it,
Motorsport.
is it a remake or is it just like a reboot?
It's a reboot. I guess it's closer to a reboot that you could say because there's been so many years since the first one came out. This is a redesign, a
Yeah,
reboot of it. So yeah, it's still going to be something that people are very familiar with if you're into the Forza Motorsport sim side of the equation when it comes to Forza
yeah,
Motorsports.
and
But
they sound
go
like they're
ahead.
trying to get more into like the e-racing arena with how many more like customizable things you're allowed to do on there. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if they're trying to like go. What was the other one? It's iArcade, not iArcade. There's a game that everyone really loves to play. That's they buy all like the customizable gear. I forget what it's called, but it's like the big name in e-racing right now. So I wonder if
Mm.
Forza's trying to compete.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, when it comes to e-racing, I mean, there's still a lot of things. I mean, I know that the e-racing simulators and things of that nature is something that I think when it comes to iRacing and things of that nature, like you said, with iRacing, I know a lot of people have been talking about that for years. But that's a heavy duty investment. I know we've talked about it on this show with iRacing that yeah, it's probably the most realistic of all the simulators that are out there and what you have to do. But in order to be competitive, you have to go ahead and invest a ton of money. And I'm not even kidding on that. So if you are right now getting back, and once again, it's the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Josh Peterson along with me, Gerald Glassford. Once again, thank you so much for watching and listening. Truly appreciate it. But when it comes to the showcases, focusing in on the Xbox showcase today. Again, like you said, they focused in as they needed to. If you're talking about what's releasing over the next 12 months, they had to focus on a lot of smaller developers because they don't have a lot of big things coming up on the way.
Yeah.
What most impressed you outside the Redfall, outside the Starfield, which had an extended presentation, which looks to me, Starfield, coming from the Bethesda and all that, looks like a combination of with let's say No Man's Sky, Halo, and Elder Scrolls had a baby. It looks like everything that came together
Like
there. But
all out in space is what it looks
yeah,
like.
I heard it's so funny because I heard No Man's Skyrim. I thought that was so funny right there. But
Nice, nice.
yeah, I think that at this point in time, with those or the being the few big names that they had to really offer as far as new, fresh, large AAA scale games, they had to focus in on a ton of smaller games. Were there any other smaller games or anything that pointed out to you that you think really people should focus in on when it comes to the Xbox showcase?
Yeah, so Hollow Knight's Silk Song is definitely going to be a big hitter for indie fans. But I tell you, man, like Xbox Games Pass getting Riot Games on there is huge because there aren't any. I mean, before you couldn't play League of Legends on consoles, and now
Yeah,
you're able to play that. Like that's going to be a big hit for people
yeah,
who are, especially if you're a fan of League of Legends, or it's going to make League of Legends more accessible, which is going to thus do a lot for the esport arena.
yeah. I
And
agree with you on that.
yeah, and that's huge. And we talked about Forza Motorsport. Um, what are your thoughts on Overwatch 2? I look at this game and I say like, "Oh, cool, it has a fun looking multiplayer." Like we play this in esports at the school that I coach at, and
Hmm.
it's a cool game. The kids love it. It's a nice alternative to things that are bloody and gory, so parents have less of an issue with Overwatch, but I'm looking at it and like all these characters have such rich and interesting backstories, but there's no campaign mode to play for any of them.
Yeah, that's something I think that's the reason why it has its niche. It has a nice following with the original Overwatch, but it can't expand onto that because it just doesn't seem like it seems like there's that missing piece of the puzzle when it
Right.
concerns not having a campaign or something larger that everyone can gravitate to. It just seems to me that it's a competitive multiplayer. It's going to stay a competitive multiplayer, and it is very beloved in the esports realm. It is just something that, again, is going to be having that niche, but can expand beyond that. I don't think it will ever become one of the top titles in the Bethesda library. It'll just be something that, again, is going to be something there that's going to be nice. It's a nice addition. It's going to have a nice following always, but it's just never going to become as large of a AAA factor, I think, as other games in the Xbox library.
Which is sad because it the potential is there, but it also, like you said, they have their niche, and that creates the potential for burnout. Like, you're not going to have a lot of player retention with something like that if you're not willing to, if you're crafting backstories for these characters and not willing to expand upon them, you're going to create a pretty high turnover rate, I think. um we could keep going here. We have Elder Scrolls Online High Isle, Fallout 76. Those are just more multiplayer experiences. I was kind of bummed that the Forza Horizon 5 DLC, like, I've been waiting for like a legit festival expansion. I hate these Hot Wheel add-ons. Like, I think it's cheap, and it's I don't know, it's just like it's not, it removes what makes Forza Horizon so great, is like exploring the environments, and instead like locks you into these tracks. And I don't know, man. Like, what are your thoughts on this? I love the game, but I don't know if I love it enough to play a Hot Wheels DLC.
Well, I kind of disagree with you there because it always seems to fun for me. It allows you to be even more creative. I think to create those kind of goofy little tracks and goofy, even larger, extensive tracks that I think that some people have a lot of fun with. I know with Wreckfest when they added in the Hot Wheels style expansions that you could go ahead and create those amazing tracks that I thought it made it even that much more fun. So I think in a right context it is, but again, it's nothing that you go ahead and dive in deep into. It's just to me
Yeah.
like a nice little sidetrack DLC.
I did like the Lego DLC in the last one, though. That
Yeah.
was cool. All right, our friend Vinny D is in Arc 2 apparently, so that's
Okay.
cool, I guess. Scorn is one we talked about Scorn a long time ago, and this game has experienced a series of setbacks and delays, but it looks like a really demented game. But I am kind of into it.
Well, it has those Dead Space vibes as being
It
a
has the Dead Space vibes.
sci-fi horror. If you're into that, I think this could be for you. How bloody and how gory it's going to be because it's claiming and guaranteeing to be
Hmm.
a very bloody, over the top, gory game. So we'll see exactly how over the top it can be because there is a crowd and there is a following for those type of games. So I definitely
Yeah.
looking forward to Scorn when it comes out, but I don't expect it to become a AAA hit by any stretch,
No,
just because
no.
if it's content limiting its following and its player base.
Yeah, and then okay, I just got a few more things here. Did you see the Flintlock Siege of Dawn trailer? Like, that
Yes.
looks cool, but the combat mechanics look very repetitive. Like, you're only able to use your sword and your gun. Like, there's no combo or counter, or maybe they just didn't show any of that stuff.
That
But
could be the case.
it also, yeah. But if they don't have that stuff, it looks like it could be a fun game that will get frustrating really quick.
Minecraft Legends, which is going
Mhm.
to be its own strategy game. But,
Mhm.
obviously from Mojang, the creators of Minecraft. We'll see how that blows up because, of course, Minecraft is, most recently topped again the charts out there, especially overseas. And
Of course it is.
yes, Minecraft is still selling big all these years yet, all these years later. So never
Yeah.
going to go ahead and disparage the great work that's done by Mojang, especially with millions of people all these years later
Mhm.
still having fun with Minecraft. So that's to their credit. I know
Yeah.
for me, Summerfield is still something I'm looking forward to. Diablo 4 is something I think that I wanted to go ahead and mention as well. That Diablo 4 has been announced as far as coming within the next year. So I know that Melinda hopefully will be able to enjoy the fact that it was coming to PC. Maybe
Yeah.
she'll be able to get it for a PC. I know she's really adamant about not getting an Xbox for any part of this Diablo equation, but I'm going to talk to her on Friday to see if she might actually have some interest in getting it on PC. But uh,
Yeah, if she has a Samsung TV, she don't have to worry about that. She can just download the Xbox Cloud app on the Samsung.
yeah, well, I'll see if I can go ahead and do the ask. I'll see if I can go ahead and talk her into that because she's really adamant about not getting part of any of the Xbox experience, and it's just so
Mm,
funny to see that how much
yes,
of a
she,
PlayStation hardcore.
oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say she's part of the PC master race. So, and they're
No, no, no. I mean, she has PCs, but she tries to lean away from playing games on her PC to devote to
mhm.
all the stuff that she does with her projects. So we'll see what she's going to say about the latest information from Diablo 4. But the Persona, some of the games are going to
Yeah,
be,
that's huge.
yeah,
That's the partnership with Atlas. Like Persona has never. I don't think it's ever been on Xbox, or maybe it's one entry, because I know Phil Spencer
yeah.
said returning. So,
I think it has. Yeah, I think it has.
but that's
Way
gonna
back
be
when.
big. There's gonna be a lot of hours dumped into Persona on Games Pass, and
Yes.
I never, I always wanted to play Persona when it came out. I think Persona 4 was the last one that I remember that came out on PS4, and I remember wanting to play it, and I just never got around to it. So
Yeah.
this might be a chance, if there's it doesn't seem like there's too many things coming out between now and Christmas, so I might sit down and put some time into Persona.
So really what it comes down to for me is with Xbox, you're talking about Redfall and Starfield versus Final Fantasy and God of War when it comes to exclusives, at least from what I've seen so far. If Final Fantasy 16 stays a PlayStation exclusive, that's
Let
still
me
something.
let me ask one more question. Sorry. Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Where do you stand on that one? Like, that's Team Ninja put that together. They just did Strangers of Paradise.
Well, any of these projects that they're doing specifically for Xbox or Xbox in mind, you always wonder, is it going to go ahead and have the full devotion? I know when it comes to recent releases by, let's say, Bethesda, when it comes to the PlayStation exclusives that they've had to go ahead and they were still contracted to doing, do they have their heart fully invested into doing it? So, when it comes to it, I'm like looking forward to it, and it looks, what I've seen so far in the brief glimpse looks okay and looks pretty good. But Team Ninja is a very vaunted studio, and at some point in time, I think that they're going to be able to produce a game at a level that we're used to. So maybe this will be it. I'm hoping this will be it, anyways. So yeah, absolutely. But before we head on out, my friend, again, for me, Summerfield, I think Summerfield is still something I'm really gravitating towards too because of
Starfield or some
Somerville.
some
Somerville's yes, Somerville. If you get a chance to go ahead and take a look at that, Somerville is something that I really enjoy because it's from the makers of Limbo. From the people who developed that game.
okay, all right.
Yeah, so that's something again. Is I'm really looking forward to that game whenever it comes out. So I want to go ahead and say though before we head on out again, it is the Xbox showcase. They just it's so disjointed. It's so disjointed where the Summer Game Fest was here, the Gorilla Game Fest, the Gorilla Showcase was there. You had the Xbox Showcase today. You had the State of Play over 10 days ago. Again, it's just all over the place. I think it loses a little bit of its impact because it was not all done over the course of a brief period of time and really showcased out there. I think I see. I mean, I'm looking at general news reports and general news outlets, and they're not covering any of this from the State of Play or Xbox Showcase or anything out there. So again, it's losing touch with the general audience and just focusing in on the gamers, which is great for us gamers. But still, if you want to go ahead and spread the word to the general audience at large out there, it's going to be harder to convey that message when you're not doing it as a joint effort in the industry. But before we head on out, my friend, your final thoughts on Xbox Showcase, State of Play, and Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest. Again, the announcement of The Last of Us 2 remake was the big title there. Some other great announcements as well, which I'll go into before we head to the break.
Yeah, let me just say who wanted a Last of Us remake? Like, I know it's not 2, it's 1 that they're remaking, but who wanted something like that? It's been
Well, this is going to
remastered.
be well. They've got the. This is going to be the the PS5 version upgrade. That's what
Yeah,
they.
but I mean, they've remastered and up-resed it and upgraded it. Like this game has been worked on more times than I can count, and who wanted like it's not old enough to have a from top to bottom remake. It's just like this, and I know that this arose after the Last of Us 2 team didn't really have anything to do, so they just used the tech to remake.
Well, they're also doing a multiplayer.
Right, right, but still, it's just like it's not something that I think too many people are going to be excited about, especially at a $70 price point. Like, I don't think that that's a wise decision as far as marketing goes. But, anyways, if you ask me, I think State of Play had a lot of really cool things, but again, none of those, without with the exception of Final Fantasy 16, were exclusives. I look at Xbox's conference. Yeah, they had a lot of things. I started to fall asleep in the middle of it, but I think they win E3 because they showed more not well E3 summer games whatever. I think they won this year because they have more games being pushed out between now and uh, I guess the end of the year and into 2023. What's the month? It's June. So between now and June of next year. So um, yeah, and we'll see if Sony has comes back around and says, hey, we're gonna have a first party conference, and at that point I might change my mind, but we'll see.
Well, again, with Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest, it did have a lot of excitement itself. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 had the Quarry, had the new Saints Row, it had Warhammer 40K Dark Tide. Again, it had Warrior 60, Wario 64, Marvel's Midnight Suns. All great showcases for games that are upcoming. That I liked them all. The Last of Us Part One, like you said, is actually going to be announced. They announced a remaster there, and of course, they announced also as well the Last of Us multiplayer that's coming up as well. So, looking forward to going ahead and seeing all of that. Summer Game Fest, it was good, but again, it just seemed like it went under the radar for a lot of people because it was not put on a platform like an E3, which would, I think, showcase it more to a general audience. And I'm going to say that and reiterate it, and I apologize to the audience for doing so, but I really think that the importance of E3 was never more stated than in the past 14 days by all these disjointed conferences really losing a lot of its weight. But overall, Xbox, I think, had a decent, pretty good showcase. I think PlayStation also had a good showcase with its state of play. It was a little bit split between the PSVR 2 and what was available and coming for the PlayStation itself. But again, what they showcased is pretty good outside of with all these, it's all what's going to be exclusive and what's not going to be exclusive. So we'll wait and see which of these games eventually will just be a console exclusive to each of these consoles. So we'll see on that one. But Jeff Keighley's Jeff Keighley's Summer Showcase, Jeff Keighley's Summer Fest, Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest. There was also the State of Play and also as well Xbox Showcase. If you have thoughts on any or all of these, was there games that stood out to you? Was there something great that you saw that you really can't stop thinking about? Was there a game that you're looking forward to? Or was there a lot of disappointment from all these or any of these conferences? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also, as well, Pop Culture Cosmos on the social media. And again, if you want all the announcements, just go ahead. It's in our Facebook pages on both Game Source and also as well Pop Culture Cosmos in the news feed. So please go ahead, check it out today. All the info from PlayStation State of Play, Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest, and of course the Xbox Showcase, right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Coming up next, it's my good friend Mr. Rafael Barlow from the NBA's Big Board and the NBABigBoard.com. He's going to come up right after this talking about Netflix and his personal experience and how he relates to it as someone who has traveled the world as a guy scouting those next NBA stars. What was his thoughts in regards to Adam Sandler's Netflix hit Hustle? We're going to talk about that coming after the break. And then on the back end, we're talking Jurassic World Dominion's returns. And of course, everything that went on with the announcement from Deadline in regards to Marvel's Thunderbolts. Is Marvel Thunderbolts a go? We'll talk about that coming up on the back end of the show. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the show at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Want to thank so much Rafael Barlow from the NBA Big Board podcast, also as well NBABigBoard.com. Please go ahead and subscribe today to his Substack, NBABigBoard.com, to find out the latest news and what's going on with the NBA draft. Go ahead and check it out today, NBA Big Board, as also as well his podcast 5 days a week on the Locked On Podcast Network. My friend, before we head on out, Jurassic World Dominion, pretty good returns. It was somewhere right around what I was anticipating. It actually ended up $142 million here at the domestic box office. So it did beat out the initial returns for Top Gun Maverick, which I think has got to be something of note when you consider a poorly rated Jurassic World beat a top rated, critically rated Top Gun Maverick initially. But here's the thing, my friend, as it climbs to almost a really nice $400 million worldwide total in its first full week of release at Jurassic World Dominion. The thing is with Top Gun, though, it has continued to have legs. It has continued to have those consistent weeks. People are saying some good things about it. The word of mouth is really strong, and it's actually now closing in on $750 million worldwide. And looks like it could be the first $1 billion hit of the summer. I don't think that I don't think that Doctor Strange is going to hit it. It's right now at 915 million. It doesn't look like it's going to top out at $1 billion. It looks like it might get close, but no cigar. It looks like that Top Gun Maverick might have a better chance of doing so. Your thoughts on Jurassic World Dominion? Again, a very poorly rated Jurassic World, but with the kind of financial returns, as I spoke to Melinda, do you think this is the actual end of the Jurassic World series, as they had talked about and hinted about, as far as this being the end for now for Jurassic World?
Okay, so let me just start this off by saying, you know how I feel about movie critics, right? They are all not saying great things about Jurassic World Dominion, so naturally I was like, I'm gonna love this movie, and I did. It was a really good movie. You know, like I was not a huge fan of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, but this one, they did a great job at wrapping up this franchise in a way that I've never seen before. You know, they didn't have to, and it was easy on them because they didn't really have to develop characters. They just kind of had to finish characters, if that makes
Uh-huh.
sense. And they did a great job. You know, they did the stories weren't overwhelming. It didn't seem like it was. There's a lot of fan service, but it wasn't like obnoxious. You know, it wasn't. I don't know. I just like I came out of it like feeling good, and like there's
That's good.
a lot of like action elements to it, you know, like that scene with the motorcycle and Chris Pratt. It had like some Born Identity vibes to it, and he's being chased by the Raptors, but then you still get the elements of being in a Jurassic Park, as you know, Bryce Dallas Howard crashes into the trees and wherever the Italy, I think is the mountains of Italy where that park was. And then they have the Dr. Grant and Ellie Sadler and Ian Malcolm coming together to kind of figure out like what Biosim's up to. Did you watch the movie yet?
No, I've not watched the movie yet.
Okay, I won't spoil anything for you. But I don't know, it's just like all the elements came together in such a great way that I don't know, it just like it felt good to watch. And they also incorporated Camp Cretaceous from the Netflix show into this new movie. So it was very well put together, very well written. The stories were all wrapped up very nice. Do I think they're going to do more? You know, I want to wait till you watch it to really like flesh that out. But looking at it, I would say no. I would say that unless they're planning on making it into like more of a horror movie, which is like what Steven Spielberg always imagined, like I don't see an
He
avenue.
is the original Jurassic Park is a horror movie.
Oh, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. But I don't really see an avenue of storytelling that doesn't go into a horror movie vibe because, again, this is a hard question to answer because you haven't seen the movie yet, but it just, it wraps it up so nicely and in a way where you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, oh, that's it, you know, like things are just like this now. And so I think they will either let the series rest for a long time, or they will reboot the series at some point.
Oh, I think they'll reboot it, and I think they'll reboot it
Because
sooner
yeah,
rather than later.
because a reboot seems like the only place they can go now. Because like we saw in the end of Fallen Kingdom, dinosaurs are out in the world, right? So there's not really the thrill of like, oh my gosh, they brought dinosaurs back to life. It's gone.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now that I think that they will bring it back sooner rather than later. And I think that a possibility, if they really want to think about it, if they don't want to bring it back in a movie form quite yet, that they've got that Peacock that really needs a
Yeah.
lot of help. I've talked about a Fast and Furious series after the Fast and Furious movies are done. I really think that they need to look at that
These
with some of their big IPs.
Right, and these are big budget films though. I mean, Speaking of Fast and Furious, like the reunion on Jurassic Park did not feel like Fast and the Furious, where it's very like cheap and not thought out. Like the reunion on Jurassic Park and the parts where all the characters come together felt good. It felt organic. So good job to them. But anyways, back to your comment. Like I don't. These are like multi-million-dollar movies, so I don't know like how much budget they're going to want to put into a streaming platform as opposed to like putting it into a movie theater.
Yeah, I understand, man. I just think that when it comes down to it, the power of money is going to speak. The odds are most likely with a Fast and Furious and a Jurassic World slash Park, whatever Jurassic, whatever what you want to call it, it's going to be rebooted in some form or fashion sooner than later. I mean, Universal will just not be able to not want to touch those IPs in some fashion, considering the fact that they don't have a plethora of just overwhelmingly popular IPs in the first place. So especially for something that is struggling like Peacock, I think it's really something that they need to consider at least somewhere in that base of hitting the Fast and Furious or as well, either or as well, the Jurassic series. They have to go ahead and do something at Peacock because they're really falling behind. You're on mute.
Sorry, that was an error gap. No, I absolutely agree with you on that. But I feel like if they were to look at their choices of like, do I put something out on Peacock and try to save a failed streaming network, or do I want to rake in millions of dollars from people going to see these movies?
Good
They're
point.
going to choose the movie avenue every time.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, that's a good point because even you know that, and you have Peacock, that that it's not exactly the
It's like if I had a dying goldfish and someone's like, well, we can save your goldfish for several $1,000,000. It's going to be an expensive surgery. I'd be like, oof, is that worth it for me?
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Indeed, very good analogy. But it is Jurassic World Dominion. It is something I think that is doing good and very good. We'll see what the continued word of mouth, if a lot of people feel like Josh, that it's a very good movie and that they need to go ahead and check it out. But please go ahead and share your thoughts with us today. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com and popculturecosmos wherever you get your social media on Jurassic World Dominion. If you liked the movie, if you thought the movie was not that great, or what you think the prospects are for the Jurassic series, could you see it going on to a Peacock, or do you think they're just going to go ahead even after the results of what's supposed to be the final Jurassic World? What could be in the future in the cards from Universal in regards to a new Jurassic reboot? I'm assuming sooner rather than later because Universal can't keep away from that money that the IP continues to bring
Mhm.
with those dinosaurs. I think, and ultimately, money talks and dinosaurs walk with that one. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts out there on Jurassic World Dominion? Please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode, but before we head on out, I do want to thank once again Rafael Barlow from the NBA Big Board Podcast, which you can check out 5 days a week on the Lockdown Podcast Network and NBABigBoard.com for stopping by. But Marvel, in an article by Deadline, it looks like they are interested officially in going ahead with the Thunderbolts. So the Thunderbolts are a go, 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 like that old song I remember.
Nice.
But I want to say that with the Thunderbolts, it looks like that there is now a definitive. definitive way that we can see a Thunderbolts come onto the screen in some fashion. Whether or not it's going to eventually come on theaters or go into a series, we don't know 100% yet. They're talking more of like a movie, but we don't know if that's going to be officially the case, because they can switch it at any point in time into a series if they feel they need to flesh out the story a little more, or they feel that it's not going to gravitate with a general audience a little more. But it looks like that Jake Schreier has been attached to it. He looks like he gave a big pitch to Marvel, and then, I mean, I guess him and Eric Pearson, I guess they all came together when they pitched Marvel a concept for the Thunderbolts. And it looks like that they are going to go ahead with a new Thunderbolts scenario that'll come up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So your thoughts on this, my friend? The only catch is that Thunderbolt Ross, if they want to relate it to him directly like they do in the comic books, it's probably going to have to be a recasted Thunderbolt Ross, because of course William Hurt passed away in recent months, and our condolences to the family on that, because William Hurt I thought was a really good actor. But your thoughts on what a future could be with the Thunderbolts in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Josh, you there? Josh, I lost you.
Uh-oh. How about now?
Oh, okay. You're back now.
All right. Yeah, so Thunderbolts are kind of like DC's Suicide Squad, right? Like they have a changing lineup that is constantly in flux. So I'm wondering here, obviously they're setting up to use Abomination. Obviously they're going to use US Agent and what's her name, the new Black Widow. I'm curious though if they're going to end up using Deadpool, because he's been part of the team at one point, and that would be a really big get for them.
Baron Zemo.
Baron Zemo, I'm sure, and Taskmaster.
I'm going to do the dance. I'm going to do the disco dancing that he did. Yeah, the famous meme.
Famous meme. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool concept. As far as like General Ross goes, like I'm curious if they would do CG for him. I know they have to get the family's permission to do something like that, but that could be cool. Or they can approach it from like this is his final will and testament scenario, and have Mary Louise Dreyfus kind of take over the team from there.
I think they're just going to recast him. I think it would just make sense if they just recast.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at if
they've already recast him once. Remember, he wasn't the original Thunderbolt Ross.
Where are you sure? Because he was
Sam Elliott. Sam Elliott was the original Thunderbolt Ross. If you think back to the original.
Oh, you're right. That's not canon, though.
I know. But you could bring back Sam Elliott.
You could, and Eric Bana, like, was like a World War Hulk scenario, and you have like Edward Norton come back, and that.
Yeah. But I'm just saying. I'm thinking like with Rhodey. He was recast to Don Cheadle.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just curious, like out of respect, they won't recast T'Challa, and I don't know if they'd recast William Hurt's character with Rhodey. It was a matter of what's his name wanting too much, Terrence Howard wanting too much money.
Yeah, that's true. But again, when it comes to I just don't think there's the same attachment to William Hurt's Thunderbolt Ross character as, of course, we have as a community for T'Challa and Black Panther. I think that people would find it easier to recast his character, but I just think that we need to go forward. I think Thunderbolt Ross needs to be a part of this. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much a part of it. I would rather him be an active part. So I think a recasting to me would be acceptable. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, anyways, like the concept would be cool. If I can be honest, though, like it took me watching Obi-Wan the other night to really realize just how like big these universes have become, and kind of like how burnt out I'm getting on constantly having to watch something to keep up with something. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting here watching Ms. Marvel, which is good so far, but it's just not.
Yeah, I liked it.
I don't. Yeah. It's definitely got character. Love the I love the intro they have. She's kind of like, I don't know. It's really cool, but there's just so much. There's so much, and I am wondering, like, with all of this stuff out in the ether, how are they going to bring it together for an event film, or make it worth spending time on a lot of this stuff, on a lot of these like Thunderbolts, Ms. Marvel, all the goods.
We'll see what happens. Again, it is Marvel's Thunderbolts. It is hopefully going to come soon, maybe sooner than later. I'm still thinking probably about 2024 at the earliest. You could probably start thinking about a Thunderbolts as being part of the MCU schedule. I don't see it coming out that soon, but it'll probably come out at some point in the not too distant future. Again, when you already have a director and a writer already in the books and that they've pitched Marvel and Marvel has said, let's run with it. I still think the big topic is what are they going to do about Thunderbolt Ross's character going forward and how integral part. You're right, Marie Louise Dreyfus, her character is going to be a major part of assembling this team. I still think that Thunderbolt Ross, because it's the Thunderbolts, still needs to be a major part of this as well. I would not be against a recasting, but let me ask you this out there: would you be opposed to a recasting of Thunderbolt Ross because of the death of the great William Hurt? Unfortunately, his untimely passing has caused this. So, what were your thoughts on a new Marvel's Thunderbolts, Thunderbolt Ross, this whole scenario with a Marvel Thunderbolts now in the future for the Marvel Cinematic Universe? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Pop Culture Cosmos, wherever you get your social media, and of course, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. My friend, it's been a great episode. A lot of great announcements in the past 2 weeks in regards to the video game world with Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest, of course, the PlayStation State of Play, and of course, the Xbox Showcase as well. But any last thoughts before we head on out?
No, not that I can think of. We're we'll have to talk about Obi-Wan at some point, but for the most part, I think we covered quite a bit today.
Obi-Wan's been pretty solid watch for me. Not too bad. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Ian McGregor, I mean, he's still killing it as Obi-Wan. I think
Yeah,
that's
he is. It gets slow though in some parts.
it isn't the book of Sloboda Fett, my friend. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah, but still, it's like I don't like the slowness of it, and I don't like the like out of touch with my Jedi powers element that they threw in there. I
yeah.
just Obi-Wan's like the ultimate champ to me, and like seeing him in this state, it kind of like bothers me.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be a point where he regains that mental strength and that confidence because, of course, going from the original 1977 movie, we see what happens there. So I think we pretty much can see a pathway to him regaining that confidence at some point. So
Yeah.
hopefully that will happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Hopefully.
So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great